Hi everyone. Hope that this lecture finds you all well and that you're staying healthy and trying your best to not go stir crazy during this really crazy time. I definitely am going to miss all of you on Fridays, but I figured it would be nice to have a little bit of FaceTime and give you a little bit of something to look forward to, at least during the week, during this crazy time. But I really want to just say I appreciate each and every one of you. Um, and today's topic we're going to talk about is call management strategies. So, talk about stress. One thing I think I'd like to talk about before we actually get started is all of the changes that are actually occurring right now in the midst of this crazy time within the VRS and VRI industries. We as interpreters, and just not just interpreters, but the world in general has kind of been forced to work remotely and work digitally and become creative in a very short time frame. And I mentioned a few really interesting things that have occurred, which is VRS interpreters now have gotten approval to work from home. This was a decision made by not just the companies, but the FCC. The FCC allowing for people to work from home to reduce the amount of interaction we have with one another, without all of the stipulations that we've previously discussed in terms of locked doors, having a room solely dedicated to just VRS. So it's really interesting. Not not to sound pessimistic, but it worries me a little bit that they were so quick to make such a decision. Meaning, I think that things are a little bit worse than maybe we anticipate if they've moved to that. I think that is good. We're being precautionary and that they've allowed for that. So I'm very appreciative. I know that at least for Sorensen specifically, is not all interpreters are allowed to be working from home. They have to apply, and what goes into that application process, or as far as what goes into the decision making of that, I am uncertain of. I do know they ask for internet speed, but I imagine that there's more to it than just that. On top of that, they've started a new way of teaming, which is remote teaming. And so essentially, my understanding is it actually starts today, Monday, March 23rd. And when you call for a team, instead of getting a person next to you, you actually get an interpreter from anywhere in the country. And it looks similar to Zoom, where the deaf callers can visually see both interpreters on screen. I don't know exactly how that's going to work in terms of how we can support one another, but it shall be interesting. It seems like all centers will be doing that. In addition, as you can imagine, the amount of VRI work that has grown, work that previously would not have been done on VRI, just speaking specifically of RIT, many of course, all of the courses have gone onto an online platform, and professors who choose to work or teach synchronously and previously had interpreters will be working via Zoom. So I can definitely see the potential long-term impacts of these decisions, and it will be interesting to see how we move forward. But I think that you are in a very good class right now, because it's been very fortunate that the VRS and VRI industries have been one of the few industries that for interpreters that have not been impacted. The VRS setting specifically has seen record-breaking numbers of phone calls, with more people being home, some not having much to do. I'm sure that's partly why. So it shall be interesting. So let's move on now to customer service and call management. So we've talked a lot about some of the challenges that VRS interpreters face in terms of turn taking. Because both speakers, both the deaf and hearing person, cannot see one another, they often can easily overlap. In order, and we've talked about this a little bit, in order to to combat this, VRS interpreters use different type of strategies, such as using verbal cues to indicate they're not finished. So whether that would be hedging, the ums, the ahs, or actually verbally saying to one of the people, hold on a second. In addition, visual cues to indicate you're not finished, such as breaking eye contact or pointing to your headset to indicate that you're still listening. One of the biggest challenges is, how do you choose who has authority when they are talking over one another? And I don't think there really is one set answer. Me specifically, I change from the deaf person to the hearing person, and sometimes I gauge it on who I deem is more important, or whose comment is more important, or trying to balance that. And that gives me or us a lot of power in deeming who gets the authority to speak. Some other things we've talked about a little bit is about introducing the call. I've always mentioned that I really like to tailor the greeting to this specific place that you're calling. So if you're calling a doctor's office to make an appointment, the deaf person signs. I would then say to the doctor's office, you have a patient on the line who uses sign language to communicate. I'm here to interpret. You have a customer on the line who wants to place an order. We've kind of talked a little bit about that when placing food orders. Sometimes if you know the deaf person's name, and you could say, hi, this is Bob, or hey, Mom, if you know they're calling Mom, and maybe shorten those introductions. Now, how do you determine your introduction register? Well, in order to determine that, it varies depending on if you happen to know who you're calling and why they're calling. In terms of asking for clarification, sometimes you need to explain how the process works. So stating something like, there might be slight pauses or delays, just so that they understand that it's going to be different than a typical phone call. I always think it's important to be transparent to both hearing and deaf people, whether there's background noises, which makes it difficult for you to hear or see. Visual noises, for example, sometimes if a deaf person's driving and it's hard for me to see them, I let them know that. Or if they're in their vehicle and their light is very dim, I tell them that. I tell the hearing person, look, the interpreter's having a tough time seeing the person because they're not using a lot of light, or they're using one hand, or they're holding something in their hand, or if the screen or sound quality is not the best. The video phone user screen is frozen. I missed exactly what they said. Do you mind please to repeat that? Those are different things that you could do. When you use call management strategies, the interpreter and consumers will more likely have a better experience and a successful VRS call. And I think transparency being the biggest thing is where people appreciate you doing that. And that's all I have for call management. Again, if you need anything from me, whether it's you have questions or comments, feel free to always shoot me an email, send me a text message, place a phone call. The more I get to see your faces, the more it makes me feel like things are a bit normal. So I am looking forward. I'm looking forward to working with you all the next 6 weeks, and I will talk to you soon. Take care.